agenda for the next meeting, but for today, for the purpose of today, let's just stick with this agenda as it stands. And with that, I'll just, Mr. Metric, if you give us an update, or actually Mr. Harmon, give us an update.
Thank you. Good morning. I want to touch on snow. We've had a few snow events in the borough so far this season. I want to thank all the neighbors who participate in making the streets and sidewalks safe. We are enforcing the 1 hour snow rule. The police department and parking folks. That helps us clear the streets faster and makes things clean up a lot easier for us. So we ask all residents to participate with that. We do coordinate with the police and the borough administration as storms approach, so we're all on the same page. Do you want to say something?
Could I do a PSA with that too? For folks that have driveways, to please use them for multiple cars during the snow emergency.
Right.
I know in our street, the majority of people don't have a driveway, so it's really, really inconvenient for those folks that don't have them.
It definitely makes a difference, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get off snow, can we just remind people what the rule is? Is it any amount of snow, or is it if there's a notification that's gone up? Or
Accumulating snow, predicted accumulating snow.
so any amount of it, like what's in other words, people's
When they
there's
say
not
anything
necessarily
above an
going to.
inch, if there's a
Above an inch.
coating to an inch, we're okay.
There doesn't need to be an
Anything-
announcement made by the borough. You just assume that you want to move your cars out there. Sometimes there's some ambiguity. People aren't clear if it didn't go out on the flash or if it wasn't on the website, but that's not the rule. The rule is
1 inch.
1 inch.
Right,
Okay. Good, thanks.
or greater.
Right, okay.
Some other things that are in the works, we're continuing our storm inlet cleaning, leaves and debris, etc. We're doing some small street tree pruning. Right now we're on the south side of the borough. We hope to move over to the north side. We are developing our spring tree maintenance program for the rest of the borough trees, but that's not completed yet. We are working on street signs, replacing faded, old, or damaged street signs in the borough. And we're looking towards our spring maintenance program for the parks, fields, and other streets programming. So we're excited to talk about spring, even though we're not quite there yet. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Harmon. And any members of the committee have questions for Mr. Harmon at this time?
I'm sorry, I have a quick one. I know someone posted, did you put an additional bike rack up by the basketball courts?
That's been there.
Oh, it has?
Yeah,
Okay.
That was the location we thought might get some use.
Yeah, somebody posted, I think Kimberly posted a full rack.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah, and then, it just reminds me that we're aware that you're doing a lot of things for the borough, the residents of the borough. And if we don't thank you frequently enough, it's just because we're paying attention to other things.
I understand.
So
Thank you.
Yeah. Items for discussion, 201 Sabine Avenue Park and campus plans and improvements. Mr. Metric.
Yeah, we got a lot of, we're juggling 4 different improvement projects and efforts that are in various planning and implementation stages. Dollars have been authorized by council to make these things happen in this capital plan cycle. I want to explain how the pieces are coming together and set some expectations of timing, what the deliverables will be, how council gets involved, and changes you can expect to see up at 201 Sabine this year. So, with that, Council authorized KCBA architects to work directly with the rec board to develop concept plans for both of our public parks, the Sabine Park and Narberth Park. Sabine Park plan is pretty close to finished. The Narberth Park plan is probably in the 85% range of finished. We're going to move the Sabine Park plan forward and try and get that to council as an action item for you all to look at it and say, yes, this is our concept for the park, this is the way we want to move forward, before we start spending money on replacing equipment or any other kinds of improvements that that would be in this plan. And I'm going to show you a picture of the park, but this isn't the time for us to be able to go through all of the details in here, because I'm not sure yet, and I want Ed Mangold to be able to walk us through and describe to us what each one of these elements are, what the thinking was behind on how the park would be configured, and the reasons for making some of their decisions. But I want you to know that this is a design that's pretty well thought through from the rec board, and will be coming to you with their recommendation pending its integration with another plan that's been developed in parallel with the borough engineer, myself, Ed Harmon, working with them, and that's for the parking lot. So I'm showing them oriented kind of northward. Well, whatever, there we go, slightly off north. As you guys are looking at them. So we looked at the parking area, and we wanted to achieve a couple goals. We wanted to reorganize the location of the dumpster area. We wanted to economize the paving. So in other words, if we were going to pave something, we wanted it to be useful for parking circulation and parking and car storage. We didn't want to overpave the parking lot. And what we found when we looked at it critically was that we don't need as much paving as we've got up there at 201 Sabine. So our plan that we've worked with engineer on has a stormwater benefit right off the bat because we're removing paving. And the areas in the dot cover are going to be green spaces, and you'll notice on the western edge, I'm upside down here, eastern edge, pardon me, of the parking area, you see an increase of 12 feet coming out from the fence line, and then an additional 18 feet here in this bump out. So that, and here on the entrance you see another 12 to 18 feet bump out. That has to be reintegrated back into this plan. So the park's getting bigger, and I think that's going to help with the overall park design, and it's also going to help mitigate an area. We have this kind of useless acute angle of the park. That's where we're going to put the trash. No one uses that. There's a chemical toilet over there. It's sort of an unforgotten piece. We're going to take the dumpster area away from where our children play, children who attend MELC, and move it over to the corner of the parking lot. In order to facilitate the pickup of that dumpster area, we re-informed this design back to a 2-lane. We had about 5 or 6 different sketches looking at the parking as a one-way circulation, but we came back to this this design. We also originally started out with a 10 by 20 parking space, went to 9 by 18. Ed told me he really hates he hates trying to maintain green strips where cars park opposing one another. They're just nightmares. So we went away from that idea.
We can sometimes do a bioswale there.
Yeah, you can sometimes do a bioswale there, but we think, or actually the flow of water right now is kind of in this direction. Mm-hmm. So we think there are stormwater treatment opportunities in each of these islands, as well as along this area here.
And will MELC continue to maintain a playground in this corner?
Yes, yeah, that's part of their lease agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk to them about it, but we have this area here that the dumpsters are moving over to this location, and we'll have a conversation with them about how this space could help make the playground work better, whether some of it gets dedicated to the playground, where we plant some of it, whether we open it up for a seating observation area into the playground. And also I'm very excited that we finally are segregating visually, spatially, and barrier-wise the automobile movements and the children movements. Because right now we just have a bunch of curb stops on the ground there, and we've got kids walking back and forth. I don't like that.
It appears that you haven't reduced the number of parking spaces, although you've reduced the asphalt. Is that accurate?
We've reduced the asphalt and the number of parking spaces,
Okay.
so I'm glad you brought that up. We're starting off at like 133.
Uh-huh.
Did that ever get used? Was that ever a
The
capacity?
parking study peak daytime usage was 59. We've sampled peak weekday. The peak is weekday usage
Sure.
during the middle of the day. And we've sampled it up there. We haven't had a number greater than 59.
Sure.
And the original parking study was done when the Crazy Erin space was occupied. We'll continue to monitor that. I think we have enough parking on site, even if we rent out the space that's currently vacant, that 6,000 square feet space. 75 spaces is compliant with our zoning code, with the amount of use we have on the lot. Furthermore, we've had the traffic engineer look at the 200 block of Sabine Avenue, and one of their recommendations is that we could keep in our back pocket that we could allow on-street parking on the 200 block of Sabine. And we're also going to move the drop-off area west of, and I should be doing this with a map. Oh, here it is. This location here could be long-term on-street parking. This location here will be our ADA access because this is the only compliant slope that we naturally have in and out of the site right here. And we're rebuilding a ramp in this location as part of this constellation of projects. And then everything from here down to the corner is going to be marked out as a drop-off zone.
Why isn't this currently long-term on-street parking?
I don't know.
It's always been a mystery.
Yeah, particularly because it's one way.
And it's needed by the shops, for employees and merchants and owners and employees who work there, at the corner, and they can also park here in the Sabine Park. I mean, I believe people have suggested that their employees park in the Sabine Park, but for their shoppers and people using that.
Particularly if the Penn Valley, or now the shops at Narberth, will be redeveloped.
Yeah, exactly.
Pardon me, lost my train of thought. The traffic engineer had originally recommended some bump outs on Sabine Avenue. We redirected them to think in terms of other on-street traffic calming measures. And also, we're going to sign this area, if it isn't already, not with a flashing school marker sign, because that requires PennDOT approval, but marking it up as a school zone, maybe reducing the speeds, working with John Gallagher about some enforcement prior in this area. And if we still, and observing our changes, and then if we're still in a condition where we might want to consider additional traffic calming, we can install bumps in the cartway.
Okay. Parking both sides of the street is going to be an immediate traffic calmer anyway, and if we plant trees, and it'll be improvement over what it is.
Oh, yeah. While you're doing that as well, though, there was the issue with biking and safety, where it was requested by the NCC that you put under the one-way that except for bikers, to give bikes the legal ability to counter flow ride versus having to make that turn out onto Montgomery. Is that something that why you're considering traffic patterns and signage anyway, that this is an appropriate time?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, is the quick answer.
Nice.
The other component is there's damage to sidewalks and interior concrete areas. We're going to rebuild this ADA ramp. We're also looking at a solution there are some stairs in this location. We're looking at a solution that can bring a ramp up this slope to some point with some retaining walls and then some steps into the parking lot, so that if we have persons with disability that need to get from the parking area into the space, or students similarly who need to get to the play area, we can accommodate that appropriately. The last major, and probably the most major thing going on the campus is the roof replacement project. We spoke with our architect team yesterday, and we're on target to get a March bid specification together. They're working on the eave redesign, the replacement of the roof over the educational space is real simple. It's just a spec. It's just basically replace that roof according to these standards. They don't have to design anything, but the roof eave overhangs, they are still working on targeting a March authorization by council to put out to bid, and then we'll get our bids back. We'll make a decision about where we want to go from there. But in the order of sequence, so try and keep these parts in mind, all these parts that are planned. We want to do the construction of the roof first because we want to use the existing parking lot as a laydown area. That way if we damage it, it's also bigger than it needs to be, so we can cordon off a quarter of it, and it's just will be, no one will be affected by that. The Sabine Park plan needs to be approved by council before we can start spending money on those improvements, but that might happen concurrently with the roof project being done, and then the last element to be done is the parking and paving and concrete. Now here's the bad news. The cost estimate for the parking lot is a lot higher than we have in the capital plan right now. So a little bit of sticker shock at this moment. Right now we have a number of a little north of $200,000 to do this, when our capital plan just had a number in it for mill and overlay, which was about $25,000 or $30,000. So we're looking at maybe some cost savings in the design of this to try and drive that down. Even if it's a big number, I think we should still bid it, see what it comes back at, make a decision at that point about what we want to do, and it ties into a financing decision that council will have to make probably April or May of this year about how much money we're going to borrow to fund our capital improvements. We'll have a certain amount of cash in reserve at that time, but we will need to borrow if we're going to invest what could be anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000 in this location. A lot going on 201 Sabine. I just wanted to keep you all in the loop as to how the parts are fitting together and the timetable. And
Thank you very much.
We're looking forward to it looking a lot better this year. So
It's terrific. Thank you very much. Would it be possible for you to, in some form, put this out on the borough website so that people know kind of where we're going? Like but with a really clear sense that this is just what council's considering. This is some of the highlights of this future scenario, so that residents aren't caught flat-footed, not knowing kind of that things are in the works.
we'll put everything. I think that the kind of let's call it the outward-facing, non without someone there to explain verbally what the meaning is behind these things. I think we should wait until we've authorized them. So when council approves the plan for Sabine Park, then it gets put together as a doc that we can put out there, and anybody can grab it at any moment and make reasonable sense of it.
Yeah, what I'm
I don't feel
sensitive
like
to
it
is
fits together right now.
I guess what I'm sensitive to is that there are sometimes residents who say, well, why did council ever approve this? We never even heard about it. Is it, maybe you've been working with the Friends of Sabine Park already, who are kind of interfaced with the neighbors. So that, there would be our chief concern, I think, because they live nearby. But there may be other residents who are just generally, interested prior to us actually finalizing the plan. Rec board, I guess they've been involved, so that may be part of our outward. They may be, they're clearly our representatives to the larger community. So this has been kind of approved by the rec board, or being recommended. This is being recommended to us by the rec board.
Correct.
Okay, they own and understand this better.
So this has been vetted by the community. We can assume. Okay, I just wanted to touch that base. It's good.
Can I ask a question, just because I'm
Sure,
new to this? This is really coming from property, and I don't want to lead us down a rabbit hole, but
Yeah, don't take us any rabbit holes.
well, I'll throw this out there, and then you can cut it off, the descent down. I still question why we're investing in the park and the parking lot when a third of this property, the building, is in an enormous question mark as to the rentability, the upkeep, where we had conversations about a year ago of what would a possible redesign look and a repurposing of this entire kind of 3-section property be.
I can give you my answer because I had the whole thought process in my own head as we were sitting here listening to the presentation, which is just that the borough has to maintain what we have in the meantime.
So this is an upkeep maintenance?
Yeah, upkeep,
Okay.
maintenance, improvement, and we have to walk and chew gum. And look, when Sean and when the administration of the borough puts out an RFP for requests for ideas of what to do, if indeed we go that direction, then whatever happens next will have to pay for, our investment. I mean, we have to invest in the building to maintain it as a, safe, habitable place for the occupants and the users of the park. And then, if we do some kind of wholesale change down the road, that will be part of the carrying cost, will be the payback for these investments. Or maybe some of the elements will be incorporated, or, maybe the parking lot, because it's just been redone, as part of, as a permanent feature. It seems to me, it does seem to me that we sort of we're moving in a direction that is rooted in the past. It's like hard to, because we have to. We don't have any sort of options. Mm-hmm. I don't know. You probably have a more sophisticated explanation.
Well, I have a very much less sophisticated explanation, so I should probably keep it to myself.
No, I think you're here as a representative. And
Yeah,
I think
I've made my views on Sabine Avenue pretty clear over the past year.
But reiterate it. If it's a different point of view or dissenting, you should be heard.
A lot of it will be, the devil will be in the details. Will be, what does it cost? What does it cost for this? What does it cost for that? Which specific improvement? Mm-hmm. If it's going to be sort of an all-or-none package, then that's going to be problematic. I'm hoping we can break it down into real specifics, because I think in order to make intelligent and fiscally responsible decisions, we need to view this as a package of very, very specific things. So replacing playground equipment that's unsafe is one thing. It's less expensive and it's like completely uncontroversial. Who wants to have me inviting kids to play on unsafe playground equipment? Nobody. Patching holes in a resurfacing a parking lot that's full of divots is one thing. Reconfiguring it to make it nice into the longer term future and spending several $100,000 is an entirely different proposition, right? Like patching a roof or replacing them. You got to make those decisions based on all the data and all the facts and the costs, and sort of balancing things out. I think that I've said it before. I think having your park in a very difficult to access corner up a set of stairs next to one of the busiest traffic corridors in our immediate vicinity, and then maintaining a building that our architects have already informed us is a multi-million-dollar liability, with one of the largest spaces having been vacant for, I think, 9 months now almost, difficult to rent for a variety of reasons, and investing a lot into that configuration and saying, well, we might recoup it if it's redeveloped, rather than when we haven't really explored other options. I think that's somewhat short-sighted, although these look like nice plans. So I think the devil will be in the details. I would really like to see us moving forward with that RFP. I've said it before, I think it's probably the most important thing that we should be doing. In the meantime, I don't really have, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say, but we'll have to sort of see how the details and the costing comes out.
So, I think those are really very useful observations and comments, and maybe it suggests that this becomes information for whoever, is part of the RFP packet. It's like currently the borough is engaged in looking at these kinds of improvements and, playground equipment, purchasing playground equipment that could be moved in the future. We have certain kind of immediate needs and long-term needs, and that's I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, Sean, but it's, maybe as before we actually spend $200,000 on a parking lot, we actually have information back from people who would be interested in giving us proposals. So we're not having to recoup major investment if indeed there would be a change.
Mm-hmm. Did you just ask me a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the question is, what are your thoughts on that? You know, the idea on having the RFP run concurrent with having these, you know, with this plan, and it becomes data for the packet.
There are needs we know about that we've been tasked with quantifying, that we've got a better idea what it costs in this moment.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of what we've been doing. We have a desire to investigate the goal, of course, the purpose of the mission for the property, right? We don't know where that's headed, and we need someone to help us figure those variables out. I don't see those two processes as incompatible. I do see them as incompatible if you take it and you try and compress it into a shorter piece of time, because then you start to be looking forward and backward at the same time, and you get confused about what the right decisions are to make. I think it's always in the borough's interest, whether we're talking about infrastructure we own, policy about how we run our police department, organizational structure with the public works department, how I work with the assistant manager and the office manager, these sort of fundamental things. I think that the thread that weaves all those together is that time's on our side. If it takes us 10 years to get from this conversation to a grounded conversation about the course and the goals and the objectives, that's not a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a methodology we should apply when we make all kinds of decisions. I don't think we should be making any decisions that feel pressured by time unless they have a really, in my opinion, a really urgent public safety health issue. If we don't do something about this today, people's health and safety will be affected. That's when I feel decision-making should be current. That's when you should dial 911. That's when you should go out and you got to fix the sewer main. We just don't have a choice. We got to spend the $200,000. Hey, the bridge is falling apart if we don't put steel in it. And I think we should always try and leverage our permanence and our we're here, we're not going anywhere, we're going to own this property, right? It's ours. Let's use time, let's have time be our partner, our asset, instead of something that maybe compresses our decision making.
Well, I hope 10 years was hyperbolic, because I think there's there's something in between calling 911 and giving a decade to a conversation, to the prospect of having a conversation.
No, that's not what I said.
You said 10 years.
10 years before something starts to happen. I mean, you might be 10 years away from doing anything different on that property.
Well, that's a conversation I'd like to have, is what is our realistic timeline?
And so, I mean, the broader question is sort of what's the timeline for the RFP that we discussed last year? Is that something that's going to happen in 2019? Is it 2020? Is it 2021? How does that fit into our broader agenda?
So I have to clarify the RFP of looking at the whole property.
I mean,
Okay.
the broad idea, it was what was discussed last year was very simple. It was just simply to say, here's currently what the borough has, this property, this playground, this parking lot, this building. have these uses. We'd like to maintain them. We'd like to explore our options for what can be done with this property.
Right.
Because I very much agree with you, Michelle. I think the playground's like not ideal. It's it's not in an ideal location. There's a very monumental staircase that goes down to the intersection of Montgomery Avenue and Sabine, and like it can't be used because there's a top lot at the top of it.
I feel a little bit like we're not allowed to think that.
Well,
I feel a little bit like unless a professional has come and told us that, we're not allowed to think that or say it anymore.
That's fine.
And whatever happened
It's
with
why
that?
it's important for you to speak it.
Whatever happened with the RFP? With the RFP of looking at that?
Well,
That's what I'm saying is that that's what I'm asking is the timeline of that. So that was the idea, is it's just a very broad RFP, and I'm asking like sort of where does that fit in our timeline now, currently? The timeline that Aaron and Sean are generating with the council.
I would need to know that
That's
before
a-
I could even consider.
Because the RFP is a carryover from property committee last year.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, that has to, I want to know what the future and the possibility of that is before I could even think about this suggestion, this piece.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
agree with
so
that. I
that's
think it's
so that's
really
something we
important
should
to get
just
this.
discuss
Start-
with the council
so we
as
can
a whole
balance things
body
out,
probably.
A little more data.
So when we go to the workshop in February, why don't we just have that discussion then with the full council? I'm sure people in the finance administration end of things have their view, given that there's capital involved in that. And, does that suit you? Make sense to you that we would discuss that at the workshop in February?
Well,
So the whole council.
the process we've set up in partnership with the committee chairs and the president to surface new projects was that ideas would live on that spreadsheet that I talked to you about on the SharePoint drive. All of our ideas would live there, and if they become ideas that have to be discussed or put on a committee agenda as number 2 or 3, in other words, have borough staff time, borough dollars allocated to it to make it happen, like we did with the bike infrastructure application, that's something that the whole council has to say, yeah, let's make that something we're going to work on.
Okay.
So to kind of bring it up from the minor leagues, the spreadsheet onto an agenda that we talk about, that's the process. And it doesn't matter what it is.
Gotcha.
Whether it's an RFP for 2-1 Sachin or...
I guess I just want to say to my committee council members here that I share that feeling of dissonance with the notion of spending significant capital dollars into a property that we may that we have aspirations to improve in say maybe a more radical way. I also at the same time but this is a both and. I'm also comfortable at the same time with investing in the maintenance, repair, and improvement of something where we have an ongoing need. And I believe we will, if there's really is a grand improvement, like some move that we can do that transforms the whole thing and makes it better, I believe we will recuperate the dollars. And in fact, there's a cost just of doing business from day to day. And if it is 10 years, the parking lot costs us $20,000 a year. Maybe that's the cost of parking lots. But so I'm very, I think you shouldn't censor. We shouldn't censor ourselves in terms of, because that's our job, is to represent the community and to get the best thing.
Yeah.
But also how to balance. We do have to balance it against current needs, and I think that's what we're being offered here. Is like, here's the current situation, here's the current need, and here's the solution for the current problem. Yeah.
And again, I think I just need to revisit the conversation we had a year ago to look at what is the possibility of that space and what is our commitment to redoing it. Because again, there's a difference between a $200,000 parking lot and, as you say, making it safe. I think I had asked Ed, the architect Ed, what's the duct tape price? What? Yeah, that's pretty. But what is it to just keep it safe and maintain it until we can re-envision and map that out?
This is very analogous to the conversation we had about the roof repair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the gull wings and stuff. And this is why I just think maybe it's a workshop question about where does the RFP fit in at this point in the council's priorities.
And that's the fair question to ask,
And
and
is
it's the
that-
right place to ask.
Okay, is it appropriate to do that at the infrastructure part of that workshop? So that's when we'll do.
Perfect.
Let's do it then.
Thank you.
Cool. Any more to say about the Sabine? Should we move on to the bridge?
Yeah, quick update on the bridge, which is
Thank you for allowing us to make your life more interesting.
The Narberth Avenue Bridge is something that's going to live on our infrastructure committee agenda for a while now, so get used to it.
Okay, all right.
It's the single biggest capital project I'll ever do in my career with the borough, probably everyone at this table, and probably the borough will ever see. Where are we at? We're still on track for an end of year conclusion of final design. We just received back our appraisals of right-of-way acquisition. That's a traffic control file. There are slivers of 6 properties that were appraised by Indian Valley appraisers. The total value of those 6 properties is $221,000. About 185 of that is the land value. About 35,000 is a temporary easement. We had originally thought that would be north of $300,000, so I guess that's good news. Next steps are that we are going to work with PennDOT's in-house right-of-way acquisition coordinator, which is a partner with Gannett Fleming, to start negotiations with these property owners for acquiring these properties at an arm's length transaction. If we can't reach an agreement then council will get involved because we would have to exercise eminent domain to acquire the properties. But believe that the appraised values kind of set what council is what the borough is going to pay for these properties. And it's really just, it can be a sticky part of the process, but being that we have 6, we've got the appraisals done, we seem to be in a good spot to move forward with that.
I think it's important to say, in case someone in the public's listening to this and their hair's on fire, that this land acquisition is like, it's for right of way, for purposes of owning the right of way, and it won't change anything that's there. The borough's not going to tear anything down. We're not going to. It's just so that they can build the foundations for the bridge, and make incursions into what's currently private property in order to dig and pour concrete and stuff. It's important.
Yeah, to clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's on
before
the
people think we're
surface
taking
is
yards.
Yeah,
Not good.
the ballet studio is not going to disappear.
No.
The little gym's not going to disappear. The apartment buildings on the south side aren't going anywhere. Yeah.
Important point.
We still have an ongoing financial issue related to the bridge, which we're working to remedy, in that the reimbursement agreement has been expired now for 7 months. That's about 5.5 months too long, in my opinion. And as a result, as we continue to pay our design and engineering bills, we are not getting reimbursed from PennDOT. And our reimbursement is 95 cents on the dollar. So we've accrued about $48,000 in receivables, and that is particularly annoying to me in this moment in time when our book balance in the general fund is just slightly north of $110,000, and we still have to make 2 more payrolls before tax revenue starts coming in. So, FYI, another consequence of our kind of state of being with our general fund.
Are we going to renew that agreement?
Yeah.
Yes,
It's just a matter of time.
and it's been too long.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us. Questions from the committee?
I don't know anything about the agreement or
Yeah.
what, if there's anything that, I assume if there's anything the council can do to help us expedite that, you would let us know.
We've talked about that offline a little bit.
I think you're hearing that we have your back, whatever you need. Okay.
Okay. Understood.
Narberth Avenue Bridge, an art component.
Yeah, to update the committee, and hopefully this can be a conversation piece at the meeting on the 6th. It was brought up in December, and I just want to refresh everyone's memory, Bob's memory, and maybe bring Michelle and Cindy up to speed, because this happened in 2015. In 2015, the borough signed an agreement with a art consultant, who happens also to be, you may know, Todd Bressy. And Todd does this professionally all over the country. So we're really lucky to have somebody in our own backyard who facilitates public works art installations. It's really kind of unique that person lives, right here. That decision was made in 2015, and Todd put together an RFP, solicited proposals from artists to develop concepts for an installation on the bridge in a series of panels that are roughly, I'm going to say, by 3 feet by 40 feet. To be installed as the last piece of the bridge being installed. In other words, these pieces of art would be fabricated off-site, brought on-site near the end of the project, fastened to the bridge, and become a permanent part of the bridge. We had 3 persons selected as finalists: Ava Blitz, Amy Kahn, and the Traction Company. And at the time where the trail went dry was around October of 2015, which is around when the transition of management of the borough happened. These agreements with these 3 artists were not signed. If we were to sign these agreements to the artists, each artist would be paid $1,000 to develop more detailed concepts of what they would do and cost estimates for the fabrication of the full-sized pieces of art. Present those to the borough in some public format, and the borough then would make a selection from these top finalists of who would be the artist to develop the artwork, and then the borough would be on the hook for most of the costs for fabrication and installation. I'll have to look more in the details of the numbers, and I'll have those for our meeting on the 6th. That's where we sit in kind of this holding pattern we've been in for, 3.5 years? We probably, in 2015 was probably not the right time to start talking about putting art on a bridge that we're still 7 months out from final design. But now is. Now would have been. Now is, would have been, is, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're here now. So the conversation I think that needs to happen is whether we move forward with this process and we consider adding this component to the bridge or not. And if we don't, then we just have blank concrete panels in those framed sections of the bridge. Is that, did I leave anything out? That sounds pretty
perfect.
faithful.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that the history of the blank panels was that, there was the earlier councils discussed when they began planning for the bridge, discussed the idea that there would always be some kind of public art component after the bridge was built. When I was on the bridge committee, when I was first elected, the idea was like, well, suppose the art never comes to be. Shouldn't the bridge still look finished? Shouldn't it still look complete? And that's when the designers came up with this idea of like sort of panelized, indented blank concrete panel areas. So the bridge will still be complete, even if there's never any public art on it. And so this is very much like kind of an option. Former council member really wanted to get that going and did, and so there was a lot of presentations about art, and big group of artists who submitted ideas. I brought it back up again because I was concerned that the artists would disappear, that the artists would like forget about it or lose interest, or it might just disappear entirely before we ever completed the process. And since we already were sort of down this road, to to ask again, is this something we want to do? And we haven't. I didn't know that we hadn't signed those yet, so that's good to know that we're just at a choice point.
Yeah.
As a council.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up when you did. Now's the right time.
And Sean, I believe you cited a number. You gave an estimate of what we were talking about, and I don't remember what it was. I remember falling over and saying, we absolutely don't have the money for that, but I don't remember what the exact figure was.
I think at the time I did have a good idea because I looked through this material in more detail, and I know it's in our audio from that meeting in December, but I don't know off the top of my head what the number was.
Okay.
It's in the tens of thousands.
It was astronomical.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I couldn't support that given what we know about our financial status right now.
We were having the conversation in the context of the operating budget.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Well, I'm glad there's an option that there's a finished, nice, clean bridge if we do decide that the art, which I think is preferable.
Kind of depends what it is, which is
right. We have to see it.
Why we get these choices. So is there a question then for the full council? Do we want to invest $3,000 now to get three options?
To get three options,
and then that still won't tell us how much it will cost to produce the work, but
no, there will be an estimate.
Oh, they will. The artist will also then provide a manufacturer because they're going to provide the pieces fabricated to the borough, and then we will attach it at our expense.
They aren't going to fabricate the full size things, but they're going to investigate how to do it. Todd's going to guide them through the right persons to get that number from, and they're going to talk about their.
Are there on the bridge total?
There's two. Basically, like the bridge has two of these panels that are like 40 feet by 3 feet.
So just one on each side?
Yeah, one on each side.
All right, got it.
But we don't even know. I mean, those contracts are 4 years old, so we don't even know if these artists are still in the biz, or are these even still legal? I mean, would they have to be redrafted?
Yeah, would they be binding?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. It's a good question.
Contract.
But we should discuss it now so that when we get to council, that when we ask the council the questions, the answers.
Maybe I
the
misunderstood. I thought there were not signed contracts. There was the
They're not-
potential
they're
that
They're
we-
not, but they're 4 years old, so.
So there were something like 19 or 27 submissions. There was a review.
Right, yeah, I'm sure there would
There was
need
a
to be a
selection of
brief
these
review.
three.
Make sure there's not-
These three to present, to be given, they'll be awarded $1,000 to produce
Right.
concepts and cost
Well,
estimates.
of course, we can't know if any or all of those artists would still be willing to sign these contracts and do that for $1,000. But I mean, if they would,
Can
then
you
they
find
would.
out what they're, before we discuss it with council, whether or not these people are ready to roll?
Yeah, I think
Or
that's something
interested?
Todd investigated in December, so
Oh,
I'll
good.
prod him for
Okay.
the answer. They are signed by the artists,
Oh,
they
good.
just weren't countersigned by the
All right,
borough.
well, I
Okay.
probably want to read the question, but.
Will you be bringing the question to council?
We'll put it on the
Should
agenda.
we do it
Okay.
as part of the infrastructure report?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see what everybody thinks. I mean, I really can see both sides of this. I really would just want to hear what other people's feelings are in the public too.
Mhm.
Okay.
I
Same.
think that there's a lot to be said for moving forward with what the original concept was and at least seeing what the cost would be. And then again, I could easily say, let's just put this on the back burner and set a time to revisit it in the future. Like, I think that's a legitimate thing to do as well.
And is that an option? Can you install the bridge and not do the art right now,
Yes.
but do that at some point in the future? Can you add those panels at a later
Yes.
point?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the beauty of
Okay.
this bridge design. I mean, I had a secret thought that I'll make public now. When we originally decided to go with these panels, I was sort of hoping that the architect was going to also propose a solution, because they're known for their kind of integrating kind of like letters and words into their architecture. And I thought like this would be sort of cool if the architect came up with a proposal, but they didn't enter, and I don't know if they were even invited, but I'd kind of like to
other
see
than a
the
black
architect.
panel.
I'd still like to see the architect's solution. They put some things. They put some letters on there. on their,
Placeholders.
as placeholders, but it's kind of my hope, but can we still ask the architect?
Is that
They're
an option?
interested, they want to do it as voluntarily.
I don't know.
I suppose we can just ask if they want to do it voluntarily. Dan McCoubry, without pay. Just because that gives them an opportunity to complete their bridge, to be the sole author of the
Yeah,
bridge.
that's a great idea.
Do you know him, McCoubry?
No. I mean, I know him because he has an agreement with the borough, but no.
Well, I'll ask, we asked Todd if he wants to call him.
Okay.
It would just be an ask. It wouldn't be a contract.
Yeah.
Gives us another option.
At our desk.
Yep.
You'd say you're crazy. What's next, Sean? Do you want to talk about action items for council at the next business meeting? So we
do.
have two right now that we've generated out of this meeting, right? One being the question about the art, and the second one being the question about the RFP and the,
Yeah, well, those aren't really, we're not going to be taking a
Oh, they're not
motion or
action
resolution.
items. Oh, I see.
They are going to be things we'll forward onto the
For
workshop
discussion.
agenda.
For discussion. Okay. Okay.
Before we get into bike infrastructure, Bob, if you don't mind, I did hear back from the traffic engineer about the Windsor Avenue
Okay.
project, and we have a proposed public meet date of Monday, the 25th of February. Does that work
Oh,
for?
February. Okay.
It was February 25th?
Yeah, a month from today.
Does it work for you, Cindy?
Yeah, that would be in the evening, correct, John?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great, and that gives us
As
time
long
to
as
really
it-
promote.
I think
to
as
the-
long as it works for Cindy. Because,
Yep.
obviously, Michelle and I will come if we can, but I think we shouldn't hold it up if Cindy's available.
Yep.
Does that make
Windsor
sense to you?
Ave, Right,
Okay.
public meeting, perfect.
time TBD, but it'll be in the early evening.
Evening,
February-
okay.
February 25th
That's
is a
it.
Monday. Ooh, holy cow. What time do you estimate to start?
The range of 6 to 7, I would imagine.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Is that confirmed on your end?
It's good for me. It was John.
for them.
It's John's preference.
Okay, if that's, if
Yeah,
we agree to
I
that,
like
would
it.
you mind if I start reaching
Yeah.
out to the, to Civic Association and whatnot, and public? And just kind of rally, and maybe Sean, if
Let me
you-
get a date. I mean, date
A
and
time, right,
so
but
that
after
you don't
that.
have to do the communication twice.
Perfect, and if you could just help me with a really brief introduction of what will be accomplished and what the presentation will be,
Yeah.
then that can help with promotion. Okay, oh, that's exciting.
So, good, I'll be there.
Thank you.
I'll be there too.
Thank you.
You be there?
No, I
Good for you, okay. I'll be there too, so, be good.
All right, so bike infrastructure?
Yes, bike infrastructure. This is the action item, the grant application.
Yeah, council will have to consider and approve a resolution, authorizing an application for the grant. So that'll be a business item on our February meeting to be able to meet that March 1 MANCA 2040 grant deadline. But I wanted to explore the scope a little more with everyone in this committee, start to get at least the committee all up to the same level, and then we'll have the same conversation on the 6th with more information filled in between the cracks. Looking at the grant application and our past planning efforts, which include a parking study, a Windsor Avenue Green Street study that's just getting, a complete street study that's just getting underway, a draft bike Narberth thing that I'm not sure where or how that came about, the parking study, the Lower Merion Township Bike Circulation Transportation Plan from 2004, the Lower Merion Comprehensive Plan 2014, the Bike Monco Plan 2017, the Narberth Borough Open Space Plan 2006. So I really think the question at this point really isn't why should we be doing bike infrastructure. It's more about why haven't we done it already. We have a lot of the planning tools and reasons in place, and these intersect, and they keep reinforcing what's there. So the scope of this, we'll call it Phase 1 project. I want to go over with you and the budget.
Sean, and just a quick thank you for pulling all those pieces together. Between you and Kimberly, you pulled reports and studies that I didn't even know existed from the region.
I'm not sure that bike NARPA thing really exists either, but it somehow exists.
Well, it appeared, so I don't know how it appeared, but to see from all these different perspectives that they're all saying the same thing and reinforcing one another and is really helpful.
Yeah.
And if we dug, we could go back even further. You could go back
Before
to the 90s,
2004?
you could go back to the 80s, you can go back to the 70s. Yeah. It exists. It's not the first time. People didn't just start talking about biking. Yeah.
So this is the beginning of our scope. I'm using a map to
That's
describe
Windsor.
what we're doing. The dots are our parking meter locations. Dots that have been circled are locations where we'd put a meter hitch on. We've distributed 15 throughout our downtown.
Oh, that's exciting.
That's our idea. If we don't like where they are, guess what? We can just unbolt them, put them somewhere else. It's not a big deal. Same is true of our bike racks, although those are a little more, the installation, removal, relocation, them's a little more involved because you're penetrating concrete, and if you take the bolt back up, you gotta hatch it, and so forth. So every circled parking meter is proposed to get a hitch. That's a hitch that I believe you can put a bike on both sides, like a sandwich. And 3 of them, one of them one of them in Station Circle will be branded with a Bike Narberth logo.
Mhm.
And
Do they go like that?
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's not just one way, it's like ears.
Right. Yeah,
The-
the custom ones are really exciting now, and I can show you pictures of that.
The bike racks are shown with circles with a number inside. 8 Station Circle area, 5 around Borough Hall, 5 in Narberth Park. Those are the U-shaped bike parking facilities that are bolted to the ground. The fix-it stations indicated in Station Circle, as well as the signage kiosk. Windsor Avenue, a component of our complete street program, will be to investigate installation of bike facilities. We've already got some proposed cross-sections that the traffic engineer has sent to my attention on possible alternatives for the roadway, having to do with numbers of travel lane. There's single travel lane alternatives, there's 2 travel lane alternatives, there's bike on both sides, one side, and there's parking on one side, no parking, parking on both sides alternatives. We've kind of got everything laid out for us on what would work in our present park.
That's parking, right, with protected, is that parking with a
Yeah.
protected bike lane?
You can,
No, it's a travel lane.
have you all made pasta?
Mm-hmm.
So think of these as kind of this is rigatoni, this is spaghetti, and you're just going to we can extrude sections of the corridor according to these cross sections as we see appropriate.
I'm looking to see if I see my favorite pasta, but I don't.
This is exciting. So this is essentially what McMahon will present
I don't
Yeah.
see my
on
favorite
the
pasta.
25th.
Yeah.
No,
That's part of it. I mean, I think McMahon is coming on the 25th to have a conversation with the community about how they use Windsor Avenue in as much of a colloquial, plain language conversation as can be had about it. Like what do you like about standing out there with your kids waiting for the school bus? What are some issues with that?
This is really exciting.
How do you experience going to and from the park, to and from the library, to and from downtown? What works, what doesn't work? How do you experience Windsor Avenue from your vehicle? I have some thoughts. I'm playing chicken, on that one block of Windsor that I have to do when I come to work. So.
Yeah.
So which comes first, the discussion about the network of roads and the direction of travel, or or is it like, is it all really one conversation? Like,
It's one
what
conversation.
kind of pasta do you want? And like, that begins to suggest what the network of roadways might be. And vice versa. It's a
one-
chicken and an egg.
It's one conversation. We've already explored sort of I'll call it regional, even though this isn't regional, but regional issues. So how do the road relate to the neighboring roads and emergency services for the fire company exiting the building? What are the implications of making Windsor a one-way all the way through? Well, then, if Haverford continues to be one-way westbound and Windsor's one-way eastbound, we have to consider fire company egress. And how does that affect the configuration right out here? And there's a solution, and the traffic engineer is already thinking through that problem as part of the conversation. So they're considering circulation as it relates to other streets.
Has part of the conversation ever been to make Haverford Avenue go east instead of west, and Windsor Avenue go west instead of east? Because it changes the situation at the intersections here. When this goes west, this intersection backs up, sometimes all the way to Borough Hall, right at the peak travel, at the peak hours. And so then many people start to detour this way, because you can actually beat the queue if you go this way at peak time.
Yeah, they'll be looking at that.
They will? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. But it's not something you've discussed already with them?
Not in detail. No.
Okay. Great.
So this is the budget. You have the scope. This is the budget. The numbers here that are highlighted, I'm waiting for final numbers from the traffic engineer. The total project cost is $26,000 more or less in this moment, and only $23,000 of that is reimbursable through the grant. That's because the grant doesn't reimburse design and engineering, but you can use design and engineering as a local match. So our total project cost is $26,000. That includes the labor it would require to install the racks and meter hitches, purchasing the signage and kiosk, and I assume those will be installed by the vendors. Any facilities, paint or signage or any other markings or contraptions that the engineer and council want to do on Windsor Avenue, we have an estimate of $5,000. And we considered about a quarter of the design and engineering costs for this phase one to be exploring bike and ped infrastructure issues. So I think that's a fairly accurate estimate. The borough's match is composed of labor to install racks and hitches and cash that we're already spending on the design and engineering. We're estimating the borough labor, a two-person crew at $112 an hour. That's using Davis-Bacon wages. That's your fringe plus base salary. Two-person crew, a half-hour time to install each hit, an hour for each bike rack, 2 hours to install the fix-it station. We've got a labor estimate of $36.40. So that would be our in-kind, which is the only kind of labor we can use as an in-kind. And the cash that we're using for design and engineering is a contribution of $6,640, which is 26% of the overall project cost. So we're doing a 26% match. And the total grant request is $16,385. That's once we take out the match, that's what's left of those numbers. And I just got to check with I got to call in with the county and make sure I'm doing this right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
In the discussion of putting this together was, what can you just sort of summarize the discussion about replacing the fountain and Station Circle with the bottle filler? Of working ADA compatible, because that was something that had been thrown about initially, that a bottle filling station was more useful to bicyclists and would be part of the overall attraction of the infrastructure there. What do we think? Because right now the fountain doesn't work, and I know Ed has made it clear it's not just the fountain, there's plumbing work that would need to be done as well. but
you don't mind.
wondering what.
There was
the
a very
conclusion
large
was.
number that I'll let
Okay.
Ed talk
All right.
about that.
The fountain was installed incorrectly without the proper meter and backflow prevention devices. So the underground facilities that are currently in place cannot house that equipment.
Mhm.
So to do that, we have to excavate, dig up the circle, put a new box in underground in the circle, and then put the new plumbing in. It cost, I think the last one I saw was just over $14,000 to make that operable in its current fountain form. That's just to replace the underground plumbing parts.
Right. So with the exception of the fountain, does this grant application fulfill the initial, what you initiated
Oh,
about
yeah,
a year
I think
ago?
this is
So,
exactly right.
yeah.
This is the same set of recommendations. It's
Mhm.
drawing from the same
Mhm.
background of all of these, the Bike Narberth and the Bike Namanco, and so I think it'd be great. I think it's a shame about the fountain, but I mean, that's something that we think we probably, I don't know how much of that would be recoupable. I mean, I don't know if a component like that could be included in a grant, something like plumbing repair and replacement in order to upgrade a non-working fountain and provide something for bicyclists to, since a large part of our thinking here is we would like to bring bicyclists from outside of Narberth. That's one reason. I don't think, like, if you just looked at the number of people in Narberth who bike, I'm not sure that you can justify a fix-it station and station circle. No. I mean, because most people who are biking in Narberth probably have some tools in their house, not far from Station Circle, but if somebody's biking in to connect to a trail and they're seeing Narberth as being a destination spot, which I think is something that would be a really major benefit to this community from investing in infrastructure in this way. If they, it might be nice if they could fill a water bottle. So it seems to fit with it, but I don't know if the thought was that's just too expensive and complicated, or look, you really can't put those kinds of infrastructure improvements into a grant application. I'm just curious what that's something maybe you can answer.
Yeah, that's my initial thought, is that we didn't want to include that because it was a big number. I'll ask the program coordinator what his opinion is on it.
I mean, since we already have some numbers and some thought, I mean, I can see it going either way. I just don't want to lose the opportunity if it's a
It'd be nice if
viable
it could be a
option.
bottle filler dog.
Well, yeah, I think
Dog
that's the one that was in the
water
original. The schematic from last year was an ADA dog filler, bottle filler.
It's a significant upgrade to it's a nice to have sort of thing.
Right. Well, we've actually talked.
Well,
correct me
any
if I'm
kind of
wrong,
working fountain would be nice to have there.
The gardening, so to maintain the gardening on Haverford Avenue
That's
Station
another
Circle,
thing, right.
folks have to go to the south
South
side
side.
and
So-
bring over
So for a
wood.
bottle filler, dog water, and hose bin all in one.
Right, but for the purposes of this, your question is, can we just put it in, and the worst case scenario, they're gonna say, yeah, no, we don't handle plumber.
Well, I don't know. It's a thought. I mean, if there's time to consider that.
And
It would
if it's not something that goes in the grant application, could we pursue funding it somehow through the bike club fundraiser? Is that something that could work administratively? If, let's say, the community were able to come up with a gift.
Yeah,
Would that
I
work?
like that process. I just think where we're at with it is I think you're on the right track. We want it to serve multiple needs. We're just choking on the price right now.
Yeah. Is it?
It's a lot for a water fountain.
I guess what I'm trying to say is it seems to, in my mind, there's a difference between, say, like a community group saying, we're raising money for random X thing that we'd like to have, versus we're raising money for something that the borough already has in its plan that we'd like to fund privately. Is that fair to say this is already like sort of in the borough plan and could be a thing that could be funded privately as a way to support, something that we'd like to have, versus just like, oh, we'd like to have a, I don't know what.
But why not put it in the grant
Some
first?
random thing. Well, that's I guess Sean's gonna get us the answer
Okay.
to that
And if they say
question.
no, then
Yeah.
discuss privately.
Do you see what I'm?
And if they say
I'm
yes,
angling?
we
I'm
still
just-
have a 20% match on it. Sure. That's the point. It's a fairly, because that's just the plumbing. There's still the cost
Right,
of the
because
fountain, the
currently-
installation of the fountain. I think that's not included. You're just talking about a subsurface repair.
And is
Digging
it-
up, excavating
existing
subsurface repair
fountain.
and putting back the concrete.
Existing
That's
fountain.
for.
And I guess
there's
I'm-
more above that.
Is there something that really gives you pause, any of you who work for the borough, like about that idea? Like, is it just like something about it that just doesn't?
Of a partnership with a
that's
private-
problematic, you know?
Partnership
the-
with private funding? for-
No, the water fountain itself.
Oh,
The water, the bottle filler, dog feeder, hose bib thing, having it there, or,
no, I think.
like if the money fell from the sky, is it a problem?
I
we
just
like
think
it.
it's a monetary issue. I think.
Oh,
it's
okay,
a great amendment.
okay. I just was checking.
It's
I
money.
didn't, yeah, okay.
So Sean, can we throw in a line item for the plumbing?
I don't know.
Plumbing
Okay.
and fountain.
Oh, right.
Plumbing plus the fountain and the
It's
installation.
a kind of,
Final
it's
installation.
a quality of life
Multi-purpose
thing, like,
fountain like
it's,
that is gonna be
it's sort of like
Yeah,
all
it's
over the
cost
world,
$7,000
communities
here
have
for
watering
install. And that has
holes.
to be installed.
Yeah.
And
I
like
think the whole
having
thing
a
is
real
just
watering
ballparking
hole
it in.
is really, would be kind of awesome.
Like, just to be
It-
safe.
Kind of a social opportunity,
Awesome.
yeah.
It's consistent with our
Yeah.
plastics ordinance. It's,
So kind of,
yeah.
even though it's
Sustainability.
expensive, it's really like a livability thing.
Right.
But anyway, have we covered our agenda now?
Mhm.
Any public comment?
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Tell us your name again.
Stephen.
Stephen, thanks for being here.
Hi.
Any comments? Anyone else? Anything to share? Okay, well, this was our first infrastructure committee meeting. We are adjourned.
Thank you, friends.
Thanks for the
Yeah.